Mr. Maximiliano Salvadori Martinha has been the Secretary for Telecommunications for the Ministry of Communications since 2011. May I now call upon Mr. Maximiliano Salvadori Martinha to kindly come and address the gathering.
Thank you. Ministries, Ambassador, Excellence, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Let me start by thanking Dr. Pavan Dugal for organizing the meeting and also for inviting me to be here. And also congratulate for the organization of the event, which is marvelous. It's my first time here in India. So for me, it's a wonderful experience to be here, to learn and also to know more about this beautiful country. I come from Brazil. We love football. We love soccer. And by the way, French colleague, congratulations on the World Cup. We, Brazil, we have a big territory, large territory as India. We have many people, not as much as India, but we are over 200 million people in Brazil. In the internet space, we are earlier adopters. Brazil likes the internet. The Brazilians, they just love the internet. If you go to the Facebook, go to the Twitter, if you go to the Google, Instagram, and so on and so forth, and all the apps, Brazil will probably be on the top 5 because we just love this kind of apps we have on the internet. And the colleagues that precede me, they talk a lot about more general specific points of the conference. I'll bring some information on how we do the use of the internet in Brazil. First, we have CGI, which I'm responsible for coordinate. CGI is the Brazilian Internet Steering Committee. Is a committee that was established more than 20 years ago, where we practice the multi-stakeholder model. So every strategic aspect of the internet in Brazil, we deal in this committee that involves the government, the civil society, the private sector, and also the academy. And we've been pressing this for more than 20 years. We were able in this committee to create what we call the 10 principles for the Brazilian internet. Then we have freedom of speech, human rights, we have privacy, we have net neutrality. When the Snowden revelations came back years ago, CGI discussed with the Congress and with the government the approval of a law dealing with the internet in Brazil. And that is what we call the Marco Civil of the internet, the civil law of the internet in Brazil. And in this law, the basic principle is the life we have in the real world should be the same the life we have in the internet world. So if something is a crime in the real world, should not create a new crime in the virtual world. We press the same thing, the same environment, and also we press the 10 principles I mentioned before in this law. One of the strongest principles in the law is the net neutrality. And I can give you a lesson for you guys on this net neutrality. We pushed in Brazil hard on this. But at that time, our concern was every bit counts. So let's not prioritize any bit in the network. And at the time, we're thinking on internet users, human internet users. And now, 5 years has passed, we are now discussing autonomous cars. And just let's suppose I'm in autonomous cars and something happened in the streets. I need a bit of my car to be prioritized, and there's someone watching porn in the web. According to today's law in Brazil, this should be moved in the network in the same way. And eventually, my car would be crashed. So it's very difficult, from this lesson, it's very difficult to try to regulate and to legislate technology. So in Brazil, we are discussing what to do with this in the birth of the Internet of Things. Another issue that has been prioritized in Brazil right now is when it comes to the development of the Internet today, what we have is the spread of Internet of Things. More and more things will be connected to the Internet. More and more things will be collecting data from ourselves. And this will bring the born of a new economy, an economy that is driven by data mining, and also an economy that is driven by these things that are connected. And what appears to us that is very important to Brazil is to have a data privacy law, and we, again, discussed this in the CGI, in the Brazilian Steering Committee. We proposed a law. The law was passed in the Congresses and was approved this year. And along with all this development, we have AI, artificial intelligence. And here I have some examples from myself. I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer as well. And one of the things that artificial intelligence is supposed to do is that in the future, the world will be less with 9% of lawyers. So perhaps the world will be a better place. Let's see. Okay? But also, I can tell you a story of myself. I live in Brasilia, that is the middle of Brazil, and quite often I have meetings in São Paulo, which is southwest Brazil. And I don't like to spend the night out of my house, so what I do, I pick up the first flight very early in the morning from Brasilia to São Paulo. And usually to do that, I wake up at like 3 a.m. in the morning, start to have my breakfast, and while I'm doing that, I start to see my social networks, social media. And because I do that quite often, what happened? One day I was there, and then there was a question in my social media. Listen, do you have a problem to sleep? You see, artificial intelligence, they are collecting data about myself and is supposing something about me that's not true. And I imagine that if I push that button and say, just for curiosity, somewhere in the world will be registered. Listen, there's a guy in Brasilia, Max, he has problem to sleep. So send him anything you have for sleep, pills, pillows, pajamas, a good coach, and so on and so forth, and he will buy. And that's not the truth. So one thing we need to think about when it comes to all these nice topics we're going to discuss these 2 days, in the next 2 days, is about algorithms. The artificial intelligence cannot suppose something about someone. And the data belongs to the one that produces it, not the company. The company is allowed, and that's the principle we allow, to make reasonable use of the data, not any use of the data. But to not leave you with a bad example of artificial intelligence, let me give you a good example in Brazil. We have in Brazil a kind of offices where people can go, government offices, where can people go and can solve any problem they may have with the government. Like, if I want to have a copy of my driver's license, I can go to this place and I can, in the same day, get a copy of my driver's license. If I have a problem with tax, I can go there, I pay the bills, and I can solve any problem I have. And they start this with the people need to go there. And they decide, let's try to do something virtual. And they create a chatbot with a robot, a chat robot. And today, this chat robot is doing attending millions of requests from people. And what is fun about this is that roughly 10 to 20% of the people that is attended by this system, at the end, they go and they say, please, tell me your boss's name. I want you to send a message to your boss because you've been very good. But it's a robot. So that's what technology is about. Is come and bring better service from government to society. I think the topic of this conference is very nice on respect of cybersecurity, because in the past year we had WannaCry problem. We had IoT system attacking the global platforms. We have the spread of fake news by robots. So I congratulate Mr. Duval for having this on the conference. I think I've talked a lot. I wish we all a nice conference and very productive one. Thank you again, Duval, for inviting me here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.